Welcome everyone to Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. Thank you for attending and we hope you have a great conference. This is mile 3 and our second talk in mile 3 this morning is Fiqri Ismail, and he's talking about onboarding your staff with ease using Graph API and Power Automation. Over to you, Fiqri.
Hello, hi guys. Yeah. So let's start on my screen. I'm going to talk about how to integrate Microsoft Graph and Power Automation to onboarding staff. It's like onboarding staff. So that's my session. Yep. Let's go to my next. These are our sponsors. Me, I'm Fiqri Ismail, I'm from Sri Lanka, and I have this small startup called PitchIT in Sri Lanka, and I'm a Microsoft MVP for developer technologies. And this is a referral, so just try to get this link and then try to answer some questions, and you can straight away get some stuff win. Yeah. And yeah, let's begin. So this is the problem. So imagine we have a company that they are onboarding staff, and then they have this Office 365, and they have all this. They have to just create license, and they have to enter information, and then they have to assign some devices, and then maybe they have assigned managers. So these kind of day-to-day repeating tasks. So if they hire, like normally, if an admin of Office 365, they can go to the Office 365, easily go to the admin, and then do this stuff. What if you have to automate this stuff using a technology? You can just leverage these options like using Microsoft Graph and using Power Automation. That's the path I'm going to show you about. So how to overcome this problem using Microsoft Graph and then using Power Automation. So I'm going to use 3 different technologies. First, I'm going to use Microsoft Graph API, and then after that I'm going to use some Microsoft Power Platform. That's Microsoft Power Platform. Part of Power Platform is Microsoft Power Automation, and then that will be an ASP.NET web application to show how this Graph API is integrated seamlessly. So you work with Power Automation and they do something, and then update in Office 365, and then use Microsoft ASP.NET Core to view this application. We start to talk about a little bit of what is Graph API. As mentioned in Microsoft Office 365 in the website, Microsoft website, this is a gateway to data intelligence in Microsoft 365. That's like a gateway, it's a bridge to different content or any applications to access Microsoft 365 information. And again, it says a programmability model. That means you get a programmability model like an API, a REST API, to access through any programming language, mostly if you're using a front-end technology like Microsoft Blazor or React.js or AngularJS, you can have this one, or you can just work with a mobile application using Xamarin or any other mobile technologies. And then I'm focusing on ASP.NET Core, the latest version of ASP.NET Core, and then how to get this information. And next up I'm going to call is Microsoft Graph Explorer. In my demo, I'm going to show that what is Graph Explorer is. We start from that. Graph Explorer is like a playground to just test with these APIs within your login and these endpoints. You just log in with your school account or any live account or Microsoft account, and then you can just play around with Graph API using Graph Explorer. The Power Automate. Power Automate is like a repetitive task. You have a repetitive task, like day-to-day repetitive task. How to overcome these things, or maybe get a solution. So for example, imagine you have you go to admin, and then you're creating a user, and then you come back. If you can automate these things, day-to-day task, or maybe imagine you have a CV received on your Outlook, and then you just get this PDF, read it, and then create this information in Microsoft 365. You have to do every day, you have to save it in OneDrive and then get that information and type back. You can automate this repetitive task using Power Automate. That's Power Automation. Let's dive into the demos, because most of these are demos. I'll start from the demos. Let me share my screen for demos. Let's see. Let's go back. And I'm going to share my screen one. So let's demo my application first. I'll go back. This is my Office ASP.NET Core application. I have used my work account to log in. So this is my work account, and then I picked my picture and then my email address. So I can log in, and if you click on these users.
Fiqri, we can't see your screen. Do you want to share? You haven't shared your screen. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure. Now. Okay. So I have my ASP.NET Core web application, which is running the latest ASP.NET Core, and I have logged in using my Office 365 work account. This is the account, and I have an home screen and picked up from my information. This is used Graph API, and also I picked up my picture from Graph API, and then my users, my tenant users. I have create some dummy users from my 365 account. All these users are now picked up here. So let's see. This is the ASP.NET Core application, and then if you go back to my automation, let's go back. Yeah, this is my Power Automate application. If you look at, I've just created a manually triggered one. It's picking up a Graph API access token. I'm going to talk about later what is an access token, and then look up for that access token and then create a user in Graph on my Office 365 tenant. Let's just test this one, and I'm going to test it. Let's run this flow. Now it has successfully executed. Let's go back to my ASP.NET application and click on users. Wait a little bit more, I'll just refresh it. Sometimes it gets a few seconds to get updated because the user is creating at that end. So maybe I'll just show it in my tenant. It should be there. Let's go back to my tenant. Admin center and users. If you look at these users, if I refresh this one, you will see this user, the flow user I've just created from my Microsoft Flow with an email account. Maybe I think it's now my application is updated. Let's see. My ASP.NET is updated. Let's refresh back. Users. Let's try back. This is my code. So it's loading right now. So the user has created the tenant using my the automated Microsoft automation. Let's log in back, and yeah, log. This is my ASP.NET Core web application. Wait a second, and users. Yeah, here we go. So we have our user. Let's try to dive through in the code. So before that, let's go through the Graph API Explorer. So let's go back. This is Graph API Explorer. So this is how it looks like. You can just try this information. Like for example, you start with your sign into the Graph API Explorer with your work account or school account, and I'm going to try my work account. Now we have like logged in. These are the samples you can check. Just if you click on this My Profile, it will get you the profile information as a JSON string. So this is the URL. So you have the URL, it's a get, and then this is the version one. You can just try with different, it has a beta version as well. So you can just try this information here. So if you want, just get my photo. So automatically it picks up. So this is a playground kind of thing. You can just test these Graph API endpoints using login There are several information like for group information, all these things can be explored. This is Graph API Explorer. This is the latest version. You can just try without any issues. Like next thing is the documentation. Documentation for graph is here. So well documented thing, you can just nothing else you need, the well documented. For example, what are the authorization you need for access Graph API? What are the things it gives out? All these things. For example, like let me just, this is users, all the users of my organization. If you click on this one, you have the endpoint here saying, okay, this is the endpoint you have to try. So you copy it, or maybe you can just click try it, just copy it here and go back to your Graph Explorer and paste it here and just run the query. See, all the information comes back. This is using Graph Explorer. Next option is like how to get this information through ASP.NET Core. Let's drive to my application. I have my ASP.NET Core application running here. I have created a small, because you can follow this tutorial. A small tutorial is there on Microsoft website coding, accessing Graph API using ASP.NET Core. I followed that tutorial and created this application for that. This is a small application. You start with these dependencies first. You go here, you get these dependencies packages. There are 3 different packages. First, you have to download this one. Microsoft Identity Web is still a baby version, and then the Web UI and the Graph SDK version 3.6. That's the starting point. You start from that end and you start creating the application. First, you create the graph, the service current factor. Right? The tutorial goes. Now this one, you create a graph client with the access token. Right? Now next question will be, okay, when I'm going to grab this access token. To grab this access token, you have to create an application in your Azure AD tenant. Let's go back to my browser, and then this is my Active Directory tenant. So you go to this Azure Active Directory, and then you click on these app registrations. And then you have these applications here. I have created one. So this application can be created from the scratch. You just Active Directory, app registrations, and click new registration. Then you can just select these options. For example, here it says okay, only single tenant, multi-tenant, and then you can access the other Microsoft accounts as well. Right? These things you can select, and then you have to create a URI. For the redirect URI, because we are after login, after using this authentication, it should look at where to log in. Normally, for me, I'll just show in my application, Azure Active Directory, app registrations, and my application here. Just go to okay. If you look at these things, these are my information, and then I go back inside my authentication part and see it says localhost 5001. This is my localhost I'm creating, and then the sign in OIDC. This is the local host, and then sign in path, the redirect URL plus the sign in URL and the logout URL. Next step, you have to tick this one, the ID tokens. Right? Now you have done it, and then next step will be just creating some client secrets here. Right? You have these secrets here. You can create it and copy it down. Then you come back to your Visual Studio. First thing you have to do is like just click right mouse button on this project and then manage user secrets, because this is a good way of like keeping your secrets. Even though if you upload in your applications into a source control, these things won't be updated there. So user secret will be on your local machines. You click on that and you have a JSON file. This is your starting point, and then you go back to your application settings. You start this information. You say okay, Azure AD. So if you just type this Azure AD, Microsoft Identity Web will automatically pick up these sections from your app settings JSON. The instance, okay, the login, and then the tenant, and then the callback path. For secrets, keep your secrets. It's a good practice. Make sure, how do I get there? Right mouse click, and yeah, right mouse click. There should be manage user secrets, and you get this JSON file. Azure AD client ID. The client ID will be copying from this one. This is your application client ID, and secrets will be, you just created the secret here. You can just create easily from this path. Right? Now you have created that. secret, and you copy paste it. That's the configuration of application ID and the authentication. Now you can just access these tokens. So you have this code here. For example, this is the part you just get the create the client factory with the authentication token, and this is the helper class for getting that information. Next step, you have some constants. You need to these constants. These are the constants like, for example, the graph constants. You have this information like what are the permissions. Okay, how do I find out these permissions? It's like this. Just go to the documentation, and I'll go back here. If you want the user information, like working with users, these are the authorization things you need. So the read basic call, read write, and the directory access. Right? You create these constants in this way. You have scopes. These are called scopes, and then all the constants are here for me. Next step. Now the claims. This is for the claim principal. That means for the logged in user. I have created a like a sample, like a helper class kind of thing for the display name. This is replaced from the graph API. So you can get this information here. So like graph this information, and then the display name, all these things for a nice helper class. That's my helper class. Next step, you go to the home controller. And this is home controller when the index page logged in. So you can just start the authentication process and get the token part. So that's why when you just start this application, it automatically go back to for the logins. So it automatically goes for the Microsoft logins. So if you don't want that, you can just create a login exchange. Like you click on it, just you can just log in. If you don't want that, you can just always create another controller, maybe an account controller, and then create a sign in and create a sign in button. When you click on it, this will trigger. Now you have this information here. That's for the normal login and getting the profile. Right. So next step is like for the users. Now let's go back to my users controller or users controller. The same thing. Look at this. Now I have a index. This is the index part. When you click on it, it gets the organization users. I have created a helper class for that. So this is my small, because you can just separate this. I just created for demo purpose only. I just created here get organization users. Now from that the graph service client factory, it creates an authentication client because it's to get the tokens and the scopes. The scopes we have created here. So if you need any other scope, you can add it here. Just automatically get the scopes for that. Let's click here. Formation control. Next step, you have created the graph client, and then graph client has the users, and then it's like this. Graph client has all this information. If you go back to your API, all this information, the version 1, the calendar, contacts, all these are you can grab here. Just say graph client. So all this are the contracts, the contacts, the device information, the direct information, all these are inside coming from your SDK. It's easily you can use that. It's like for the users I have just used graph client, and then get me the users, and then send a request, and then request, and then get async. That means it picks up the information here, right? Now you have this information here inside the users. I just delete that. Inside the users, you will see it picks up the users, and then I have created a view model to get these users. Let's go inside that. I'm gonna just control press. Now I'm saying that I'm going to get the users. A user type is Microsoft Graph user. I'm going to list up users and populate them into a nice view model and get back the all users. That's the part. Now I've got the user model. I'm going to pass it to my index view. I'm going to go to my index view. You see, this is my view type, and I have this all users from that model. I got the display name and the given name for that one. So this is how the Graph API works with ASP.NET Core and then picks up the information you need. Right? This is from the ASP.NET Core information part. So let's go back and run one time. It's just not the users. You can just pick up the calendars. You can pick up all the Graph API version 1.1 information from this SDK. If you need beta information, you have to get this beta SDK and download it. You have the other information, other new stuff they're trying. You can just try it from that. Let's go back and it's starting. My application starts. Now I'm logging in. So you are logged in, all your users are listed here. This is one way of doing it. If you want to create users, it's the same way. The documentation has the information. Imagine like this. It will be a post request. You go back to your documentation and then you have this user and then create user. I'm going to use to create user using Microsoft Power Automation. Like on the Power Platform, I'm going to use that to create users. It says, okay, this is how you create it. HTTP request, it should be a post request, and then the body should be this information, and all this information are all the way documented. You have this, the account, okay, automatically enable it, the display name and the mail nickname and the principal name, that means your email address, and the password profile. That means when next sign in, the user must reset his password. You can just create a random password and then use that. Let's use Power Automation to do this. Let's go back to my Power Automation, my Power Automation value. If you look at this, I have like a manually trigger one. You can just use this as a automatically trigger one, or maybe if somebody has uploaded a PDF into a OneDrive, you can use that as well. You can pick up that information and create the user. Or maybe imagine you have an Excel file in OneDrive, you created that Excel file, it gets updated. Now I'm going to create this. I have like renamed these things like to get the access token, because remember access token is the most important part, because otherwise you can't access Graph API. You need this access token, and then you find it the access token and then create the user. This is how it's done. First, let's look at the access token, how to find the access token. Right, let's edit my flow. So this is a flow. You just go back and add the action. I have this HTTP. So this one. This is the one I have used to get the access token. That means HTTP, this is from a premium connector. You get this HTTP, I just delete it and renamed it. This is how you done it. So now to get the access token, you have to send a post request, right? And this is the URL. I'll just copy it and then I'll put it in my notepad. I'll just show it to you. Look at this one. This is the token endpoint. It says, okay, login Microsoft.com. Where should I get it? This is where the path. This is how I got it. I'll just go back to my. I go back to my my application I have created, Azure AD application. If you click on these endpoints, you click on endpoints, and you will see this token endpoint. Right. It says command over to, this is the token endpoint you have to get. So I have changed it to get it. I'll go back to my flow and my notepad. So this is my tenant and O2 token. This is the token endpoint. And next step, it should be application URL encoded form. The content type should be that. So I have created that one. Next step, the content body. Look at that one. The content body has this information. I'll just copy back and I'll just right now. Look at this one. So I have just created some dummy password and dummy service account like that. So it says the client ID, my application ID. And then this is the scope. The scope is like Graph API, Microsoft Graph.com.default. This is given from Microsoft the scope, and then the client secret. I have created the client secret from the application, and the grant type is password. You have to type the username and the password, right? That's how you pick it up. Now, next step, it will give back the access token in this format. Let's go back and check the documentation. Let's search for access token, or maybe application. So you get that information there. So a single page application you have, you might, if you click on one of these, so you might get this information, all the information, how the token returns, what's the information you get from the token, right? So it says, see, right? The token, it picks up from my automate. After that, I have used another thing called JSON parser, another action. You can find it from here, JSON. This is the parse JSON, this part. So this information, the content, and then you have to give a schema to parse the JSON. Let me delete that. Okay. So find access token will find it. This is the schema. This is how Microsoft gives you the token. The type, it's an object. Say the property, the token type, it's a string, and the scope and the expire date, and finally the access token. And this is the return from the body. I'm going to get in from the body, and then I'm going to pass it. Next step, I'm going to create the user. See, it's a post. Again, I'm going to use an HTTP one. It's a post, and then you have this information here. Yeah. Says post, and then from the access token I'm getting from the JSON. So look at this. Now you have post, and then you have this graph saying Microsoft.users, and then authorization, and the token type is the bearer. This is picked up from my previous find access token part, and content type is application JSON. Next step, this is how you create a user. Let's create a user. Now let's see, saying okay, marathon, and then user ID, say, let's say t.lk, and then you have this true and all this information here. Now you have a password, and then you have to give a password, else dummy password. It will automatically create when next time when you log in, you have to give your password. Let's try this one. I'm going to save it. Let's test and test, run. Done. Now the flow is successfully executed. Let's go back to my admin center and then try to refresh. So you will see the M365 user has been created here, and you go back to your ASP.NET application. Let's execute this one. And you're gonna ask for login. Now if you can see the seamless integration between all these things, all these bits and pieces. You have Office 365 at that part, and then you have in the middle Graph API. Now you have an ASP.NET Core application. Now I have logged in. If I click on users, you will see my M365 user has been created, and I can just pick it up, right? So that's one part. Let's adapt to another one. Let me just demo another part. Let's imagine you have this OneDrive. You have your OneDrive. I'm just go back to my OneDrive. Just click on this and OneDrive. Yes. Now let's create a new folder here. say now I'm going to click inside a new Excel workbook. Now let's create and fields. Just double click on this, say 365 user 1. I'm going to create M365 1. Just double click it, and then another user maybe Kenori. Imagine you have this information. Now I'm gonna insert this into a table. Yes, I have headers. Now you have a nice table. Let's save it. And let's go back. Now you have this book 1, book XLS. Just rename that as well if you, or maybe just keep as it is. And I'm going back to my flow. I'm going to edit it. Before creating user, I'm going to add an action. Add action, and then say Excel online. Let's list rows, or maybe get add rows. List, yeah, list rows present in a table. Let's click. Now it's creating. Now location, I'm gonna just click my locations. This down. OneDrive for business. Click OneDrive, and then I'm gonna get my folders, demo, and my book. Now let's select the table. Okay, where is my table? Let's go back. Oops. 365, my book. Okay, why it doesn't select my book? Just click yes, selected. Now table 1, this is my table. Next step, I'm going to grab some users. I'm going to add my users, and then I'm going to say control, apply to each. Right, value. I'm going to add an action. So let's close this action. Each value should, let's go this inside this access an action. I'm going to say HTTP. Should be, I'm going to rename this to create users from the method post, and I'm going to copy paste all these things from here. Copy the graph URL, and header is authorization. Let's paste it here, and with value I'm going to say bearer token, bearer, and it should pick up from access token. Next step, the content type. I'm going to say content type. Yeah, content type. That's application JSON. Application. That's okay. Now let's copy paste the body here. And then paste the body. The display name should be, I'm going to picking up from a dynamic value here. Let's go back. Let's say the value and dynamic content. It should be from employee name. See, Now you get this employee name and the nickname. I'm gonna get, let's say, employee name or maybe a nick. Yeah. And the email address. I'm gonna pick it up for my email address. Let's close this. And you save it. You have this information. Let's test now. Save. Now sign in is required. Continue. Let's run the flow. Done. Okay, so it has failed here. Maybe let's see what's the issue. It says invalid value specific property for the user. Maybe I just misplayed it. Where nickname, it should not be spaces, I guess. Let's go back. Let's edit. For now, for demo, I'll just remove this name. Or maybe you can just create in the Excel, or let's say from my Excel. Let's go back to OneDrive, and then let's add a nickname. Let's say, now let's save this data, close it, come back. And for the nickname, let's try to pick it up from the Excel file. Maybe you have to refresh back. So let's refresh. Where's the refresh? Let's get back from OneDrive, yes, and 365 back. The book, the table. That's correct. The table is correct. Let's come back here. Let's pick up the nickname. Where's the nickname? Maybe we have to just there should be a refresh. Save. I'm guessing because you can't just employee name, list of item, value item, maybe it's the one. Anyway, just let's hardcode the nickname, it doesn't pick it up. Maybe let's save it. I guess it won't allow because the nickname should be unique. Let's try it and test it. At least it would get one. Save. And run the flow. Done. Yeah, and yes, it has went through this one. Let's go back inside. I think create from Excel. Yeah, that's done. Let's go back to my tenant and see whether go back to my admin. And users, active users. So you will see there are two, this one, the user one, and then this user has been created. And let's check my .NET application, the ASP.NET Core application. So login. So when you log in, yes, okay, let's click on users. Awesome. Now we have this user plus the MC65 user. So automatically created through flow. This is how you automate things. different techniques. Like I just use an Excel file, or you can just create some. For example, you can use the AI builder. For example, you just go to the AI builder, and then there are like models already created. Let's see. So there are some sample models like yes, category expert processing, form processing, like this one, or maybe yeah, form processing. Imagine you have this PDF file with CVs every day coming in. You can put it into OneDrive, and then you can just automatically process these things and run an automation, and it automatically create the users for you. And then also read the documentation. In the documentation, you can just have plenty of things. You can just assign license even. Like if you go to the users, I'll go back. If you drill down on the users, you have these users, and you drill down for the organization. Here, using this endpoint, you can easily assign a manager to this user. Imagine you are adding this user into a department, and the department has a manager. You have these users. You can grab the user information and get the ID. You pick up the ID from the Graph API, and then you assign manager, and for the reference means the manager ID for the reference. And also you can just assign devices for the user, right? So all these things can be done using Graph API plus Power Automation. And then if you are just looking for replace this ASP.NET application within a form, you can use Power Apps, create a form, and then populate the Excel file. For example, populate that Excel file using Power Apps, and automatically when the records is added, the Power Automation triggers. Those things you can be done doing these applications. There are the limitations. There are no limitations, but the options are plenty of options. You have different technologies. Even a mobile application, you can create a Power Platform application like a Power App to use this, and you can create ASP.NET application. Now you can create a mobile application. All these integration can be done through Graph API and this stuff. Like there are plenty of scenarios you can just think about and just create these things. Imagine you can get emails, and for example, if you go to flows, and then you can just trigger. You can just start. Let's click on this, the same flow. I'll just edit it, and then here you can action rather than going through a list of Excel file. You can add an action, and you can check for Outlook. Of Outlook, and then you can just check for this email plus, or maybe an attachment. Get attachment. Attachment might be getting a PDF file. That PDF you can just process using the AI models, and then create this information on Graph and Office 365. Lots of things can be done, as well as you can just if you look at this one, users, you can assign license as well. So there was some people for the license, I think. You can just search for license. Easily you can assign license for the user, whatever the license you have, like other license information. So it's like you get the user, create the user, assign license, assign for a device, assign a manager. All those things can be automated through Graph API plus any other platform that can, because it's a REST API. You can create any application, any front end for this one. So far, I think, yeah, that's the plan for today. So if you have any questions and things you can ask me, I think we can just wrap it up. There is no questions.
Hi, Fiqri.
Yeah,
you've got two questions in the Q&A.
Yeah.
One's in the one's in the public bit and one's in the private bit. I didn't understand the question in the private bit, so I left it for you to have a look at. But you've definitely got one question in the Q&A that's available for answering. Thank you. Thank you very much for your session.
Okay.
Can you see the Q&A questions?
No, I can't see.
So they're in the Teams client. So if you double click the little small window that shows you, the whole Teams client, and then top right hand corner, there's a speech bubble with a question mark in it. That's the Q&A. Okay. As you're having difficulty finding it, let me read out the questions and you can answer them. So one of your attendees asks, can you use Azure Authentication ASP.NET Web Forms and not MVC?
Yes, because it's a REST API. First thing, Graph API is totally REST API. You can use WPF applications, you can use web forms, and even you can use Xamarin Forms as well. It doesn't matter whether it's the technology. I just show what is ASP.NET MVC, but it doesn't matter if it's the technology. Even you can just access it from the command line because it's a REST API. Okay,
thank you. And the second question, as the best I understand it, it says how to configure a webhook on Power Automate and to register the webhook with.
I didn't get that.
How to make it. Actually, that was the title to the question. And the question is how to make a webhook with Power Automate and create subscription to the Graph API get /communicate/core records.
If I can see, I didn't understand that question.
Yeah, I think it's quite a detailed question. So yes, in the Teams client.
So you click on it. Questions. Let's see Q&A. How to make a webhook with Power Automate and create subscription to the Graph API get. So normally for webhook means it's like I showed as the HTTP webhook. You can use it's a REST API. It's kind of a webhook to access these APIs. It's like communications. You select, as I shown in the demo, you have to select HTTP, and then from the URL you have to select get, and then it should be the API call. Rest is you have to get the token and call it, like I did for creating the user. It's the same thing. You copy the URL from the Graph documentation and paste it there using a get. Good, but definitely you have to send the authentication